I have a question. I think I have an answer. This is not a rhetorical question. It's an actual question. And my answer is an actual answer, although I'd like to toss it out to you. Maybe you've got other suggestions or ideas on what the answer is. But the question is, why do conservatives deny that child hunger exists in the United States? I believe that the principal answer is that child hunger in the United States is dramatically up ever since the hatchet attacks that started in the 1980s against the Great Society, Lyndon Johnson's program that cut poverty in half in the United States in 6 years. I believe that the reason why Republicans want to deny that child poverty and child hunger even exists in the United States is because they caused it. I mean, you got 1 in 5 children in the United States right now living in poverty, and many of them, the vast majority of them, living in what are called food insecure households. This is a phrase that the U.S. Department of Agriculture uses to say there are nights of the week or days of the week when these children go to sleep hungry, when they literally don't have enough to eat throughout the day. And yet, we get this kind of crap from Bill O'Reilly. Listen to this.
So Democrats believe that people are entitled to certain things. They're
That's
entitled
Kristen
to health care. They're
Fox News
entitled
analyst.
to food. They're entitled to some basic necessities of life.
Free.
What you call free stuff and what Jeb Bush calls free stuff that actually are necessities in life. So the problem with when he said free stuff is that he's talking about children getting food. He's talking about a lot of the people who receive welfare, even the adults, are working poor. They're people who have jobs, but they don't have enough money to get
that
food.
myth has been busted time and time again.
It's not a myth.
If you look at the studies of poverty,
at least 50% are working.
If you look at the studies of poverty, most poor people in this country have computers, have big screen TVs, have cars, have air conditioning. This myth that there are kids who don't have anything to eat is a total lie. And
it is absolutely not a lie.
It is absolutely a total lie on a mass level.
City,
somebody needs to take Bill O'Reilly down to rural Louisiana. And but in any case, so why do the conservatives constantly promote this? I mean, here's the actual numbers: 16.2 million children in America. This is from Share Our Strength, facts on childhood hunger annually. Top line facts: 16.2 million kids in America struggle with hunger. The source of that: the United States Department of Agriculture Household Food Security Survey. So the USDA. This is not the Democratic Party. This is the federal government. Says over 16 million children struggle in the United States struggle with hunger. 10 million children eligible for free or reduced price school breakfast don't get it. Now that would be in large part, I would guess, in those areas where in the states where the Republicans have just tried to make it harder and harder to have access to these things. 6 out of 7 eligible kids do not get free summer meals. 15.7 million children in America live in poverty. 21.6%. Children who struggle with hunger are sick more often. They recover more slowly. They're more likely to be hospitalized. They're more vulnerable to obesity. They're more likely to experience headaches, stomach aches, colds, ear infections, and fatigue. If they are undernourished between the ages of birth and 3 years old, for the rest of their lives, they don't learn as much. They don't learn as easily. Children who regularly do not get enough nutritious food to eat have significantly higher levels of behavioral, emotional, and academic problems and are more aggressive and anxious. Now, that's just children. There's 48.8 million Americans, including 16.2 million children, who lack the means to get enough nutritious food on a regular basis. They live in food-insecure households, and as a result, they struggle with hunger at some time during the year. So why would Bill O'Reilly claim that it's a lie? When, nobody who actually studies this stuff, including the U.S. Department of Agriculture, would take Bill O'Reilly's position. Why would he argue that so strongly? Well, because as I keep pointing out here, the Republican Party has basically 3 categories of people in it. There are the billionaires and the transnational corporations, the very wealthy. There are the very well-paid shills for the billionaires. Bill O'Reilly, clearly one of those, and he himself has become a multimillionaire by being a paid shill for the billionaires and the transnational corporations. And then there are the suckers or the dupes or the, whatever you want to call them, who believe this kind of stuff that Fox so-called news and right-wing hate radio and some of these right-wing websites pump out on a daily basis. But basically, the Republican Party is all about rich people and big corporations. Now, you can't win an election saying, we're just here for the rich people and the big corporations. But you can win an election by obscuring that fact as much as possible. You will not hear discussions about, changing the top income tax rate or, our trade policy or strengthening labor's rights and things like that. You won't hear that on Fox so-called news. You won't hear that, frankly, on most of the corporate media. But what you will hear are the pieces of the coalition that the Republican Party has put together where they go to people and they say, we're really here representing the billionaire class and the transnational corporations, but we can't win elections with that. We would like you. And we'll help you out. We'll make sure you get money, lots of money, and influence and fame and fortune if you jump into bed with us. And they say this to right-wing evangelicals, and suddenly right-wing evangelical churches across America are passing out voter guides telling their suckers, parishioners, to vote Republican. Why vote Republican? Well, because, hey, they're giving us money. So they do that. They go to the people who are religiously and fanatically opposed to abortion and say, hey, we're your party. See, it doesn't cost the Koch brothers anything. Nothing at all. If abortion is legal or illegal. So what the hell? We'll support the people who want to make it illegal. Bring them into the coalition, some more voters who can vote for people who are actually, at the end of the day, just going to support the billionaires. Let's reach out to the people who love their guns and are afraid that the government's going to come and get it. In fact, let's make them more afraid, say the Republicans. And we'll bring those suckers in. Which is not to say people who own guns are suckers. My brother and his wife who own a bunch of guns, they're about as far from suckers as you can get. But they're also not buying this Republican sales pitch. And this is just, and there's all these, as I keep saying, the Republican Party is a coalition of special interest groups that will vote Republican, people with these single issue voters. They look out and they say, where are the single issue voters? Okay, people who will vote for or against a candidate on one issue. Okay, there's people who for it's guns, there's people it's abortion, there's people it's religion, there's people it's war, there's people it's terrorism, there's people it's Islam, people who are afraid of or uninformed or hysterical. Let's bring them in. This is the Republican coalition. It's the coalition of the rich and the frightened. And if that's what you're doing, if you're only working for the billionaires, you have to say to the American people, there's no poverty in America. Reaganism hasn't exacerbated poverty in the United States. Our policies, our Republican policies, we didn't cause any poverty because there isn't any. Right? You don't argue that your policies are actually helping American people because Bill O'Reilly can't argue that. He cannot argue that Republican policies have reduced poverty. So he has to simply say, there's no poverty. It's a myth.